All right. All right. What's up, everybody? Oh, for some odd reason that didn't stop. All right. Well, at least I got the thing to change over. The music can go, I guess, but that was supposed to stop. All right. We'll get there. We're getting there. It's just taking time. Good morning. And, good morning. Hello. Good to see everybody so bright and early in the morning. It is... Okay, here it's not so bright. All the smoke in the air, it's not like terribly bright right now, but hey, Joshua, good to see you there, brother. Been a while. Hope you're doing well. So, yeah. Things are good. I mean, it's just smoky, so, almost feel like wearing some kind of a HEPA filter just to walk outside, just to breathe. And I'm getting videos from some friends and some pastor friends in other countries where it's monsoon season and it's flooding. And we're talking countries where they primarily ride motorcycles, and the motorcycles, like, you see people pushing their motorcycles, and literally all you see is them holding the handlebars and maybe the very back end of the seat popping out, and they're pushing the motorcycles through the monsoon rains. So smoke here, monsoon there, potato, I suppose. But, man, it's August. I mean, half of me wants to sit here and lament and be like, God, have mercy, show us some mercy and change this a little bit. And the other half of me wants to, pat my head and go, well, I could have had a V8 and realized it's August. Like, this stuff happens in August. So doesn't mean it's fun and enjoyable, but it is. So good morning, everybody. Feel free to drop a line in the chat room so we know you're there, and feel free to interact. And, if you guys have questions, you can always ask questions in there. Somebody else will probably answer. The delay on this, by the time I say it, it gets to you guys, that's 15 seconds or so. And then by the time you respond and it hits here, that's probably another 10 seconds. So there's like a 30-second delay, so it almost doesn't make sense for me to respond. But there's other smart people in the chat. I'm sure they'll be able to help you out too. So, but we'll dig into this. This is going to be a good study. It's really short. You guys see this? 6 verses. Shortened verses, not short in information or wisdom in here. That's for sure. So this is study number 7, James chapter 3, verses 13 to 18. And this is heavenly or other wisdom. And there's a lot of information in here in these 6 verses. So let's dig in. Let's get going. We don't need to banter on forever. Let's go. All right. Who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Yeah, okay, so again, really short verse-wise, but man, is that jam-packed of stuff. So let's take a look at this. It breaks down, we're breaking it into 2 spots. The cause of disorder, 13 to 16, and then the wisdom from above and how we apply that, right? I want to point out, we are in the middle of an ABA pattern right now in James's writing. So he's writing, and this is an overarching section. This is chapter 3 all the way through, and then the first 12 verses of chapter 4. And it's essentially problem, solution, problem. And it starts with the danger of the tongue, which we did last week, right? And then this week, we're doing the solution to the danger, which is following the right wisdom. Following the right wisdom. And next week, we go into more about the danger of the tongue, basically this reminder. So we have problem, solution, and then a reminder of the problem so that you don't just get, feeling really good about the solution. No, we have a solution because there's a problem, right? So we have that understanding going into this. This is a continuation and a continuing of the discussion of the problem with the tongue. So this started with, hey, not many of you should be teachers because you're going to be held even more accountable for the things that come out of your mouth, right? And we've been able to tame everything on earth except our own tongue. Like we can't seem to tame our tongue. So this is a very real danger, right? And now he comes into the solution. Okay. And he starts this discussion with, who is wise and understanding among you? By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. Now he begins this topic of wisdom by asking, who is wise? Who's the wise among you? Right? Almost as a challenge, right, to the readers and to ourselves. Now we can look at that and just be challenged by that. And it's challenging the thoughts towards wisdom. Like, well, okay, I'm wise. Well, wise in what? Right? Okay. And he points out that wisdom is not a tool to show or to gain power and authority, but rather a means to show humility and to serve, right? We should work through our wisdom and be humble and gentle and meek about that. Meek is not weakness, right? It's gentleness. Because remember, authentic faith leads to action. And so we are to act out through this wisdom, right? And not just to speak wisely, but to live wisely and to show it. Okay? Now, meekness, we've talked about meekness a few times here, and I want to point something out because it's very matter of fact for us to just say meekness is not weakness. And we hear that a lot. If you're in the church for very long, there's a good chance that you're going to hear someone say meekness is not weakness. Well, there's a reason that we say meekness is not weakness, because meekness is gentleness, right? Well, we say meekness is not weakness because this was a teaching that Jesus taught that was contradictory to the times. Okay, it didn't make sense because to the Greeks and the Romans in that world, and to most societies, period, you led by force, right? You were in charge because you were powerful. And so meekness was often seen as weakness. So especially to the Greeks and Romans, they considered meekness and gentleness to be a sign of weakness. But Jesus taught, we'll see in 5:5 of Matthew, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Okay, so he taught the opposite, saying, no, it is good to be gentle. It is good to be meek. Okay, it is good, right? We see much of what Jesus taught went directly against the social norms of the day and of the area. A great way to think of this is just because it's legal doesn't mean it's right. And Jesus was showing that all the time, even to the Pharisees. Just because you're saying and you're twisting the law and saying that this fits in the law, that doesn't mean it's right. Is it better to heal the man on the Sabbath? Or, my father's still working. Why can't I? Like, is it better to heal the man or to do nothing? Right? It is better to do what is right. Okay. And so now meekness of wisdom. So we'll move on. I don't need to just jab on that and find a soapbox to get on. I could do that very easily, but meekness of wisdom, he's essentially saying, don't flaunt it. Okay. Don't lord over people with your wisdom, but be gentle and caring with it and live it out. Live it out as Christ lived it out, right? So you're to show, like he's saying, if you're wise, great, but show it in your good conduct with works, right? Because faith leads to action with works, in the meekness and the gentleness of wisdom. Do it to help people. Do it to lift other people up. Do it to be a servant, not to be a master. Okay. Then he goes to 14. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false to the truth. So bitter jealousy and selfish ambition, these are direct contrasts, right? It's a direct contradiction to living in meekness and honoring the jealous God, which, okay, might seem a little awkward. We talk about God as love. We talk about love and mercy and peace. And God is a jealous God. We see in Exodus 34:14. several other places, really. For you shall not worship, or you shall worship no other God. For the Lord, whose name is jealous, is a jealous God. That's why he's opposed to idolatry. If he wasn't jealous, he'd probably be okay with us worshiping whatever we wanted, whenever we wanted. I would say that the God of universalism is definitely not a jealous God. Come to me any way you want. I'm going to take you no matter whatever you believe. Whatever you want to say about me, that's fine. I take whatever. No, God is a jealous God. He wants us to focus on him, right? That is what we're supposed to do. We have too much of me time and too much of focus on myself and not enough focus on God, the Father, right? And on Jesus. And in some circles, the Holy Spirit, it's a 3-in-1, right? So to yearn too much for yourself and what will better you, and this can be a little bit of a hazard, especially here in America, because so much of what we do is, I need to save up money. I want to buy a better house. I want to get a better car. I want to have a boat. I want to, go on vacations more. I want a really nice retirement without moving to Thailand. I don't know. We get into this, and so much focus on us puts ourselves on the throne. And love of oneself to this degree can very easily become idolatry. And it puts us in the place of God. We become and put ourselves on that pedestal, and we say, we're God, and God, you're there to do this for me. And then we twist words in the Bible like he does all things for my good. That one drives me bonkers, but whatever. That's neither here nor there, right? This is a word of caution, right? Saying if you have bitter jealousy, like, I want that power of that person, what they have. I should be the one teaching. I should be the one leading this church. I should be the one doing whatever. And you're trying to put yourself there, and selfish ambition, like, I'm going to weasel my way in there and make this happen. I should be there, so I'm doing it. That is a dangerous position. And he's saying, do not boast and be false to the truth, okay, which comes in here. Selfish ambition. Now, the Greek, I had this earlier. Let's see if I can try this. Erythia, I believe is how it's pronounced. I might have butchered it, but I think that's it. Anyway, is a word that's changed over time. And I want to give you an idea to what extent is he throwing at these people. Now, these are people that at the time know these terms very, very well. And he's speaking to a Jewish audience who is now Christian. They accepted Christ. And so they understand legalism very, very well. Okay, so this, from what we can tell, originally this Greek term meant those who could be hired. It was really for like spinning spool and stuff, right? Making thread. Those who could be hired to do medial work, like just could be hired on the spot just to do some kind of job that we didn't want to do, right? And then it eventually became a term after like 2 or 3 renditions of just changing. It eventually became a term to mean those who will only work for what they get out of it. And it held such a negative connotation that it was used for politicians who were seeking political power and prestige. Yeah, we have words for that too. I don't know that I need to share them here, but we have words for that too. So that is how bitter he's throwing this in here and how low he's throwing, right? Saying, guys, if you are as bad as a politician, if your jealousy is to the degree that you're like a politician who only cares about himself and will lie through his teeth telling people whatever they want to hear, whatever's important at the time, to get into power so that he's in power, or she at this point, right? He or she is in power. This is an issue, right? Don't go here. Now, this term is also translated in Galatians 5:20 because this also became a term for the church. This term was translated in Galatians 5:20, you can look that up yourself, write it down, as rivalries. Because one with such selfish ambition is willing to divide a group or a church, split up a church, to gain power and prestige and even control. Let's take a look at Philemon 2:3. There it is. Do nothing from selfish ambition or conceit, but in humility count others more significant than yourself. Okay, so we need to not be looking at ourselves and not be looking as to what I can gain out of this. It's one of those things that yes, it is a blessing to be a blessing. We need to, and I struggle with this sometimes, accepting blessings from other people. It's like, no, if I refuse a blessing from someone else, I might be denying them a blessing. And it's a really hard concept. But a lot of times people will want to take that and make it to where it's more about me. Like, oh, well, thank you for helping. Now, may God, you're going to do this. I'm going to do this because of what God might do for me. Like, I'm going to tithe so that God will give me sevenfold back. God will give me tenfold back. God will give me whatever the pastor at my church wants to tell me he's going to give back. If you're doing things for what you're going to get out of it, you're doing it with selfish ambition. See, in the church too much, we see all too often it's more about me than it is about God. And what can I do for God? Okay. Think politics back a ways. Think not what your God can do for you, but think what you can do for your God. I mean, God's got it already taken care of. He's already got it under control, but he's still using us. And he's blessing the people around us, and he's blessing the world with us and through us. So we are the hands and feet. So we need to see, God, what can I do? Thank you. You've already done everything for me. You sent your son to die on the cross for me. You gave me your Holy Spirit. You speak to me and you speak through me. You do all of this stuff. What can I do? What can I do for you? That's the point where our hearts need to be. When we stop worrying so much about what God's doing for us and what he can do for us, and we start worrying about what we can do, or not worrying, but contemplating what we can do for God and for God's kingdom. And oftentimes, because he doesn't need anything from us, he wants our love. And he wants us to love those around us. And he wants us to serve those around us and treat them like ourselves or better than ourselves, right? So we step up to the plate to be a servant, okay? So in your hearts, moving on here, if you have bitter jealousy or self and ambition in your heart, so this is the core of your person. You hear that all the time in my heart of hearts. It's your core system, your core belief. If that's where you're at, if that is the true motive behind what you're doing, not what you're putting up front for other people to see, but what's really driving you, okay? That's what it is, don't boast. And don't be false to the truth, because this is going to compound the problems. This is going to compound the issues, and not just for you, and not just for the people who are directly listening to you, but when that spreads, it stains and tarnishes the entire church. It tarnishes the entire body. So you're hurting everyone in Christendom by doing this. That's what he's saying. And it goes on from there. 15. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but this is earthly, unspiritual, and demonic. So let's take a look back. We go to chapter 1, verses 5 and 17. Let's take a look at what has he already told us about wisdom from above, right? If any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach, and it will be given him. So God's going to give you wisdom if you ask. You want God's wisdom? Ask. He's giving it. He doesn't hold back. He gives it. So ask, right? And then 17, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom, now here's the key, with whom there is no variation or shadow due to change. Catch that. There is no variation or shadow due to change, meaning from a change. God's wisdom and how he handles things does not change. Does he do it in different ways? Sure. But we need to recognize when we're feeling wisdom and we're feeling God's wisdom, if God is not going to tell one person, save this person's life, and then go and tell another person, kill that person. His stuff doesn't contradict. Okay, that's the thing. It doesn't work that way. Okay, one, God's not going to tell you to go kill somebody anyway. That's not how he works, right? He doesn't want you to kill people. He sent his own son to die because he loved the world, not to condemn, but to love. It would be completely out of his character to ask somebody to do something like that. He just doesn't. But we need to look at these things and consider and recognize, where is this wisdom coming from? And then he lists 3 options for where quote, wisdom is coming from. Okay, because there are different options for wisdom, right? There's different ways that we can be wise, right? How do we handle the information that we know? Okay, sure. How do we handle this? Okay, now each of these starts with pretty mild, and then it gets just progressively worse down the list. And he could have added more in there, but he just gave us 3 to make a really blatant point. Okay, there's the earthly wisdom, and this just comes from the natural order of life, right? You look around, okay, don't step in front of a car because the car will win. A moving car, right? All right, that's physics, right? Okay, physics, science. Like, this is natural earth wisdom. Now, this isn't necessarily bad unless it claims to be coming from God, or, which even then, God created all of this stuff, so I'm not even sure that would necessarily be bad. But if it's claiming to be coming from God and it's twisted and distorted, because remember, the earth is ruled by someone else. The earth is ruled by the enemy. The god of the world is Satan. So a lot of the earthly wisdom is twisted and slightly tainted. Okay, so we have to be somewhat careful with just the natural earthly wisdom. Okay, but it's not necessarily bad. Okay, it's weigh and balance, right? This is why we balance things with the scripture. We balance things with the Holy Spirit. We recognize whether or not it's healthy or unhealthy. Okay, then it goes to one step down. Okay, and from the natural wisdom, like just from living, you understand things. Even Gentiles, even the people who don't accept Jesus, the one who don't acknowledge God at all, they have this level of wisdom because they live here, right? You just recognize things. Then you go one step down to this unspiritual, or depending on your translation, some of them say sensual. And this word is really interesting because it does directly translate as unspiritual, but the meaning behind it actually is more of a sensual, as in like a sensational, like how do I sense, right? So this sensational and personal wisdom is very much that my truth kind of wisdom. And now that saying drives me bonkers, drives me up the wall. This my truth. Okay, well, that's great. But it's like 2 + 2 is always going to equal 4. It can't equal 3. And if you're telling me that your truth is that equals 3, that's a problem. Okay? So you can't always get wherever you want with however you want to get there. Okay? This sort of thing becomes really dangerous. It's like saying, I want to get from Boise, Idaho to China, but I'm going to drive my car there, and I only have $5 to put in the tank. And when someone tells you that's not right, you won't get there, you call them a hater and narrow-minded, okay? And then when the car runs out of gas, you get mad at China because obviously they hate you because they didn't let you there, even though you ran out of gas in Idaho. Like, it's just one of those things that we've got to be really, really careful with these my truths moments, because there is a direct truth, right? An actual overarching truth that handles everything. And we've got to balance that. So this one is, again, not necessarily bad unless it's claiming to be coming from God or superior to God, which happens a lot. That's where this becomes dangerous. It is vastly more dangerous than the earthly wisdom. Earthly wisdom is a natural wisdom. It's stuff that we just see. But as soon as we start doing this contemplation of it's my truth, I can think and believe whatever I want, that's when things become incredibly dangerous. Okay? Because then we're trying to say my wisdom, my personal sensual wisdom, is better than the earthly wisdom and better than God wisdom. Okay? It becomes very dangerous. But then he takes it to the ultimate extreme, and he says it can even be demonic. And demonic wisdom is coming directly from the enemy. It's fully reversed and twisted and is going directly in the face of God. And this is always bad, and it's never neutral. Okay? Because demons and the demonic are always against God. Plain and simple. So this wisdom that is leading to bitter jealousy and selfish ambition is coming not from above, but it's either something from the world. How do I get a better position? I'm looking at the world. Or I should have a better position because that's my truth. I should be the teacher. My truth. Sensual. Or maybe it's even demonic. No, I should be the teacher here because I'm better than that person, even though I don't know what I'm talking about. And the things that I'm going to teach are going to split the church up and are going to cause a lot of problems inside of the church. This is what he's talking about. Because remember, this is all tied directly with the not many of you should be teachers. Okay? This is what he's talking about. So we look at these things in context, and that's where he's discussing. Are you doing this and are you trying to get there because of earthly wisdom? I have a better degree and I've been around doing this longer than that person, so therefore I obviously am called and they're not called? Is it the my truth, I just feel like I should because I want to be there and not them? Or is this demonically influenced? Hey, you should be there and then you should teach, I don't know, any number of things. You should teach things that will distort and hurt the gospel. You should do things that hurt the church and hurt God. Okay, that's going to come from the demonic. So these are the different things that he's talking about. But please recognize there are different types of wisdom. It just depends on where it's coming from, right? 16. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. Now, there's two Greek terms here. I'm not even going to try. I'll just say the very last end of them because, yeah, I'm not that good. All right. Anyway, so where these types of wisdom are, okay, where believers are striving out of jealousy and selfish ambition, there will be disorder, which is this Greek term on the screen. We'll just say asia. Okay, I'll just say the very last end of this because I'm not good. Anyway, which is coming from, you'll see also next week in chapter 4, verse 1. This means chaotic fighting. There will be disorder or chaotic fighting. A related adjective is the same thing, but atos instead of asia. It's atos here, which is a related adjective that James has already used in chapter 1 and earlier in chapter 3, which means unstable and restless. So there is unstable, restless, chaotic fighting inside the church. You catching this? That's what he's talking about. Because remember, he's dealing inside of the church. He's telling them, hey, guys, you're not handling things properly. This is bad. And you're making every Christian everywhere look bad because of this. We got to calm things down and find this wisdom, okay? And so he's talking about this chaotic and unstable and restless fighting caused by jealousy and selfish ambition, okay? Now, this vile practice, every vile practice, that clearly there was, and again, this goes back to what we were just saying, clearly there was a lot of strife and fighting in the church, and James is clearly saying, this is not from you, or excuse me, this is not from God, this is from you and your personal selfish ambition, and also from the devil, from the demonic side. This is not from God. If you are fighting inside of the church over power, over authority, over where the coffee station should be, this is not from God. This is over from you and potentially even the demonic, trying to cause splits and issues in the church. We need to be united, right? This is where he's coming from. And then he takes it into 17 and 18, more of that actual solution. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, and full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. Notice how this is written. Notice this. The wisdom from above is first. He puts a level of importance on this one piece. It is first and foremost and always pure. It is unstained. It is unaltered. It is untainted. It is clean. It is perfect. Then it is peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, and impartial and sincere. It is first, always pure. It's not self-serving. It's not jealous. It is not with motivation. Okay. It is without motivation. Then it is peaceable, creates peace, right? And it is gentle. It is loving. It is kind. It is open to reason. I love this one. It is open to reason. It listens. It will give you the ability to listen and understand and willing to admit that one might be leaning on a different version of a wisdom, another type of wisdom. God gave us a mind, right? He gave us minds to use and logic, right? To use, right? But it's willing to reason. Because if God's saying, if we want that coffee bar in the church, okay, great. There can be a coffee bar in the church. There's nothing in God's word that says don't have coffee in the church, right? Okay, so fine. But we want it here. Well, this person wants it over here. Why are we fighting over this? What's going on? And then someone comes in and says, well, I want it over here because it looks better. And the other person comes over here and says, I want it over here because we have drainage system already installed. We have electrical over here that's already set up that can be used for this. And we can build into the wall and it doesn't create interference with this and this and this. It gives us the ability to reason. Right? It is open to reason. We can discuss and work things out. Okay? And also, it's full of mercy and good fruits. Mercy, it's full of compassion. Literally, okay, I want to point this out. Mercy, I took this up for a minute. Mercy, according to Easton's Bible Dictionary, mercy is compassion for the miserable. Its object is misery. I don't know about you, but I don't know that I really took the time to think of mercy in that light before. Mercy is for the miserable. It is compassion for the miserable, those who are in direct and horrible misery. It seeks out misery to give compassion to. Take a look at Galatians 5:22-23. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law, right? This fruit of the Spirit, right? It's full of mercy and good fruits. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. God's wisdom is full of love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. He just gave us a full nother list to add into the list. And it's impartial and sincere. It's honest without cherry picking. Think about that. God's wisdom doesn't just select people out by willy-nilliness or by cherry picking. Ooh, I like this person a little bit better. I'm going to help this person. No. His wisdom is for everyone. He's already told us. He already told us this. If any of you, chapter 1, verse 5, if any of you lacks wisdom, let him ask God, who gives generously to all without reproach. To all without reproach. Ask, and it will be given to him or her. It's honest. God doesn't lie. He's going to give it to you. And it's going to be sincere. And he doesn't do it partially. He's not going to just answer some and not answer you. That's not how it works. Okay, and 18. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Interesting. So sowing God's wisdom in action and not just in words, okay? To sow is a verb. It is an action. Now, you can do that by verbal. You can do that by speaking. But you can also do it by living it and doing it, okay? Sowing God's wisdom in action, right? Living in God's wisdom in peace will reap a harvest of righteousness. Living in peace in God's wisdom will reap a harvest of righteousness. Let's look at, I put a few verses in here, 4, I think. So yeah, and we'll just go through these really fast. I just want to give you some options here, some examples. Okay, Hebrews 12, verse 11. For the moment, all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. Man, I talked to Gabby about this, my daughter. earlier this week. Discipline seems painful rather than pleasant at the moment, but later it yields peaceful fruit of righteousness to those who have been trained by it. 1 Peter 3:14, but even if you should suffer for righteousness' sake, you will be blessed. Have no fear of them, nor be troubled. 2 Timothy 2:22, so flee youthful passions and pursue righteousness. Grow up and seek righteousness. That's the Drew translation. Faith, love, and peace, along with those who call on the Lord from a pure heart. Romans 8:5-7. For those who live according to the flesh set their minds on things of the flesh. But those who live according to the Spirit set their minds on things of the Spirit. For to set the mind on the flesh is death, but to set the mind on the Spirit is life and peace. For the mind that is set on the flesh is hostile to God, for it does not submit to God's law. Indeed, it cannot. Okay, so that's, point that out. If you're living into the flesh, you're living to death. But if you're submitting to God and God's Spirit and His wisdom, it goes to peace. Okay, if you're living for the flesh, then you can't submit to God's law. You just can't. Okay, what can we take from this? What can we glean from this, right? First, wisdom without action is not heavenly wisdom. God does not give you wisdom so that you can just sit on it. No, we're called to live it, not simply know it and understand it. We are called to live it. Okay? Called to action. We are the hands and feet for a reason, people. Non-heavenly wisdom can come from the world, natural, our own sensual understanding, my truth, or even demonic, which would be spiritual warfare. We need to pay attention to these things, okay? Too often we want to just jump on the spiritual warfare bandwagon. Everything is always spiritual warfare. Well, not necessarily. Some things are just because of how we recognize the world. Some things are my own truth, how I want things to be. But a lot of times, a lot of this is distorted because the world is ruled by the demonic. So, it makes sense that it's spiritual warfare to a degree, but we need to also recognize some of it's on us. Some things happen just because of the world. Some things happen because we do things. But there's different types of wisdom, and they come from different places. Now, non-heavenly wisdom in the church can and does cause strife. It causes fighting. It causes splits. It causes conflict. It causes anger. People get hurt when we claim things that are from God, or we claim things are from God when they're not. We need to recognize that. People get hurt when we claim things are from God and they're not from God. We've got to be careful. Because non-heavenly wisdom in churches can and does cause strife, fighting, splits, and conflict and anger. It causes problems. And finally, but the wisdom, and I just quoted this. This is just part of it. But the wisdom from above is first pure. It's then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits. It's impartial and sincere, and a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. Your peace, sowing peace, reaps a harvest of righteousness. It's a lot of stuff going into this one little itty-bitty section. But man, is it a good one. God, I want to thank you for this word and for this information, for your wisdom, for giving this word to James so that he could write it down, and having it be here in the Bible so that we can learn from it today and grow with it and continue to be with you and help each other and learn better how to be servants. Not just lord over people, but to be servants in your wisdom. God, I ask that you be with those who are sick and hurting today. And right now, period. I ask that you help to clean the air and take care of these fires that are going all over the place. Oh man, there's fires in so many different places. It's fire season. God, keep people safe. Keep your environment safe and the animals safe, God. Send the rains. Help put these out. Be with our firefighters as they go out and take care of this in the lands, and be with their families. Father, we ask for blessings for them, that you provide for them and you take care of them while they're out there doing this work that is so dangerous. And God, for our brothers and sisters around the world struggling right now with this incredibly intense monsoon season that is causing floods with a strength that hasn't been seen in quite some time. God, I ask that you be with them, and we ask that you be with them, that you grant them mercy. God, you protect them. And God, you find a way. It's interesting to phrase it that way, and I know that's just very human of me, but you allow a way for them to shine your light, God, and to be the light of these cities in areas where Christians are a very low percentage. They're very low on the totem pole of the population. Help them shine your light to show those around them you, to show them Jesus, to help them find that natural security forever. God, help them find you and help these believers, our brothers and sisters in these places, do that. Help them be the hands and feet in ways that they don't even realize that they're being hands and feet. God, give them grace and mercy. Father, I just thank you again for today. I ask that you be with us all. In Jesus' name, amen. Well, hey, I want to thank you guys so much for coming here today and joining. I know it seemed like a short one, but the clock on this countdown timer says otherwise. This is about the same as everything. So, hey, have a great weekend. Love on one another. Be there for each other, and yeah, have a great weekend. I'm gonna go work on some flooring now, so I'm gonna go change shirts and get back to work. Yay! Go flooring. All right, we'll talk to you guys next week. Have a great one.